Hey everybody, welcome back to our video lessons. This week we are continuing to learn about multiplying polynomials. So that's your title today, multiplying polynomials. Okay, so if you haven't watched the previous 3 weeks of video lessons, then this is going to be a struggle, so make sure you go back and actually watch them. So we are going to start with squaring binomials. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a little subsection of your notes. Squaring binomials. So what that looks like is if you have a binomial, remember a binomial has 2 terms in it. So let's say it was x plus 3. If I take that binomial, group it up, and I square it, we have to be able to know how to solve that. Okay? Now, some of you might be thinking, well, maybe I just square each one of these individually, okay? So what I'd like you to write down, because it's very important to know common mistakes, let's go ahead and write down a common mistake people do. A common mistake that I see all the time is kids have a tendency to want to just take this exponent, distribute it to the x, and get x squared, and then distribute it to the 3, and then 3 squared is 9. So they would get this. But guess what? That is completely wrong. Okay, so I just want you to write, nope. It's a very, very common mistake. And if you make this mistake, that's fine, but hopefully you can figure out that you made that mistake and then correct it, okay? Now I'm gonna prove to you, before I tell you how to do this, I'm going to prove to you why this doesn't work, because it seems like it should work, right? It's just like right there. But let's go ahead and prove why this doesn't work. So the only way for me to prove this is we actually have to plug in a number for x. So we're going to say, let's say x equals 10. Okay, so the only way I can really prove why this doesn't work is I have to plug in a number for x. So if we know that x is 10, then I can rewrite this expression as 10 plus 3 in parentheses squared. Now, you could take your calculator and you could go ahead and type that in if you really wanted to, and you would get 169 as your answer. Now let me show you how. Use order of operations, parentheses first. 10 plus 3 is 13. And then 13 squared is 169. So 169 is the correct answer. So you might just want to write to yourself, correct answer right here. But I'm going to prove why this is not correct. What we first might have thought when looking at this squaring of a binomial, what we first might have thought was you just take this exponent and distribute it to each. Well, if I do that here, that would be 10 squared plus 3 squared. Let's go ahead and simplify that. 10 squared is 100, 3 squared is 9, 100 plus 9 is 109. Did I do that right? I can't do it that way. Okay, that proves to me, because I did not get the correct answer, that I can't do this thing where you just distribute it to each of the numbers on the inside. Now, some of you are like, hold on a second, Meineke, you have misled me. Because some of you remember, I'm going to do a little thought bubble here. Some of you remember a few chapters ago, a few months ago, we did things like this, where you had like 5x cubed on the inside, and you take that whole thing and then you square it. And this is, we need to use power rule to solve this. So in this case, you do distribute the exponents to each of the powers, and you get 5 squared times x to the 6th. which is 25x to the 6th. Now in this case, you can just distribute the power to each of the powers. That's because what you have in parentheses is being multiplied. And in this case, these are not multiplying. This is an addition, okay? So when it's adding or subtracting, you have to do a different method. So here's the next little piece of this. I'm gonna help you get to the right answer here. So I want you to kind of remember something, okay? Remember. Let's go back to basics of exponents. Like, what does an exponent really mean? So if I had 4 squared, is that 8? No, it's 16. And that's because, here's why. If you expand that out, this is an exponential form. If you were to write it in expanded form, it'd be 4 times 4, right? The exponent tells you how many times to multiply the base. Okay. Another thing I want you to remember is, what if you had like 5x and you grouped it up in parentheses and then you squared it? Now we could distribute that too, and it'd be 5 squared and x squared, which is 25x squared. Cool. But I want you to write it in expanded form. Another way you could write this, the quantity 5x squared, is 5x times 5x, right? These are equivalent. So I want you to take that thinking and now apply it to this problem here. So the key word here, and I want you to write this nice and big, is that you need to expand. You need to write it in expanded form. Okay, here's what I mean by that. So we take our current expression, which is the quantity x plus 3 squared. This is exponential form because it contains an exponent. Now what we have to do is we have to expand it out. So all of this stuff squared, well, I'm just gonna multiply it by itself twice. So I would have x plus 3 times x plus 3. These are exactly equivalent. They are the same thing. So this is key. I don't know what you need to do in your notes to make this stand out, but this is key. Here's why. The only way for us to really solve or simplify this is we have to expand it out, because if you look at this right here, this should look familiar. If I see 2 binomials being multiplied like this, I think, oh, I just used FOIL, or some of you like to use box method. And that's what we would do next, is we would use FOIL or box method to simplify. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. X plus 3 times x plus 3. I'm a FOIL person. I think you guys have figured that out by now. So I'm just going to use FOIL real quick. Feel free to use box method. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 3 is 9. We combine like terms, we get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Final answer. Okay? Now, I want to prove to you that we can do this. I want to prove that it's okay to expand it out and use FOIL. So let's go back to this right here. I'm just going to put this off to the side. Let's still pretend that x equals 10. So let's write it again. Okay, now using what I just told you, which was to expand it out, let's go ahead and expand this out. This would be the same as 10 plus 3 times 10 plus 3. If we were to use FOIL, let's see what we get. First, we would do 10 times 10, which is 100. 10 times 3, 30. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 3 is 9. Let's add this together. That makes 130. This makes 39. Add that up. You get your 169, which we knew was the correct answer. Okay? So this way of expanding it out and then using FOIL or box method is really the only way to do it. Okay, so we're going to do a few practice questions on that. And if you need to write steps down, you could. Step 1, expand out. Step 2, use FOIL or box method. And then lastly, you would simplify by combining like terms. Okay, so we're just going to do 2 problems of this. Hopefully that's enough practice. All right, first one. Your quantity is 4x plus 5. So you're going to take that binomial and you're going to go ahead and square it. Okay, so step 1 is I expand it out. This is the same thing as 4x plus 5 times 4x plus 5. Next, I would use FOIL or box method. It is your choice. I'm going to use FOIL on this one. So I take my first terms. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. Next, I multiply my outside terms. 4x times 5 is 20x. I go to my inside terms. 5 times 4x is 20x. And then I multiply my last terms. 5 times 5 is 25. The last part of this is to combine these like terms together. And I would get a final answer of 16x squared plus 40x plus 25. Notice my answer is in standard form already, so I don't need to change it around. That's it. Expand it out, multiply it up, final answer. So let's do one more. Your quantity is x minus 8. I want you to take that and go ahead and square it. Pause the video right now. Use box method or FOIL. Doesn't matter. Okay, so I have to expand it out first. This is the same as x minus 8 times x minus 8. Okay, now on this one, I'm going to go ahead and use box method just to make some of you happy here. Now, I'm going to create a 2 by 2 box. The reason is because I have a binomial, which has 2 terms, timesing by a binomial, which has 2 terms. So I need a 2 by 2 box, okay? Then I'm going to go ahead and place the terms on top. I'm going to put x and negative 8. And then along the side, I'm going to put x and negative 8. We multiply through. Each row gets times by each column. X times x is x squared. X times negative 8 is negative 8x. Negative 8x times, negative 8 times x is negative 8x. And then the last one, negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. All right, we combine these like terms. I see some x's I can put together, and I get a final answer of x squared minus 16x plus 64. Okay, so your choice on box method or FOIL, but the key is if you see a set of parentheses being squared and there's addition or subtraction happening, you gotta expand it out. Expand it out and then use your FOIL or box method. Okay, the second section to this, we're just gonna call it multiplying polynomials. Now, if you remember from the very first lesson we did on polynomials, polynomials is a very general term. So there are special types of polynomials. A binomial is one of them, right? Has 2 terms. If it's just 1 term, it's called a monomial. If it has 3 terms, it's called a trinomial. And anything 4 or more terms is just a polynomial. But polynomial is a general expression for all of them. So we have learned how to take a binomial, such as 5, and multiply it. Oh, sorry, I already messed up. We've learned how to take a monomial, like 5, and multiply it by a binomial, like x minus 4. Now this, we would use distributive property, right? Okay, so that's a monomial times a binomial. Another thing I've taught you is what to do when you have a binomial like x plus 3 multiplied by a binomial like 5x minus 1. That was last week's lesson. You would use FOIL or box method, okay? But now let's look at the next example here. Let's do orange. So let's say you had a binomial. So we're gonna write 2x plus 3, a binomial, and we're gonna times it by a trinomial, something like 5x squared minus x plus 4. So we have to be comfortable with solving these as well. So here is the main idea. I want you to write it nice and big. We might have written it last week too, but oh well, it's super important. So here's the main idea when multiplying any polynomials. Each term in the first set of parentheses must get multiplied by each term in the second set of parentheses. Okay, that is like the golden rule of multiplying binomials. Now, we do it naturally in these cases where you have a monomial times a binomial. That's distributive property. Each term in the first set of parentheses, and you could put this in parentheses if you really wanted, needs to get multiplied by each of these terms in the second set. We do that naturally with distributive property. FOIL. If you take first and then outside and then inside and then last, you are multiplying each of the terms in this set by each of the terms in this set, okay? So we are gonna go ahead and show how to do the work for this 2 different ways. If you're a FOIL person, that'll be on the left-hand side. If you're a box method person, that'll be on the right-hand side, okay? Now, something to just think about. FOIL is a cool acronym, right? First, outside, inside, last. And really, FOIL is for a binomial times a binomial, okay? Because you have 4 little pairs of multiplying happening. So this isn't going to be straight up FOIL, but it's going to be FOIL-ish. Basically, it's just extreme distributive property, okay? So let me copy down this again. I got 2x plus 3 in the first set, and that's going to get multiplied by 5x squared minus x plus 4. Okay? So each term in the first set gets multiplied to each term in the second set. So let's start with our 2x. I'm going to have to multiply it by the 5x squared, by the negative x, and by the 4. So let's start there. 2x times 5x squared is 10x cubed. 2x times negative x is negative 2x squared. 2x times 4 is positive 8x. Okay, so we've distributed that first term to everything. Now we have to distribute the 3 to everything. 3 times 5x squared is 15x squared. 3 times negative x is negative 3x. And lastly, 3 times 4 is 12. Sorry, I ran out of room. Okay. Now from here, we combine like terms. The cubed, x cubed, there's no other x cubed, so I'm just going to drop it down, 10x cubed. My negative 2x squared can get put together with my 15x squared. That would be positive 13x squared. My 8x can go with my negative 3x, which is positive 5x. And the 12 doesn't have front, so we just drop it down. So that's my final answer right here. 10x cubed plus 13x squared plus 5x plus 12. Okay, it's just extreme distributive property. Everything in the first set gets multiplied by everything in the second set. And that would still be true if this second set had like 5 terms. And if this first set had 3 terms, you would have so many little arrows happening. Okay, now let's also do the same problem using box method. Now, what we have here is a binomial times a trinomial. We have 2 terms multiplied by 3 terms, which means you have to make a box that is 2 by 3. So you could do 2 rows by 3 columns, or you could do 2 columns by 3 rows, or 2 rows by 3 columns. It doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna put my binomial on top. So I would put my 2x here and my 3 here, which means I need to make 3 rows. And then I'll put my 5x squared, negative x, and a 4. Pause the video if you need to set that up, okay? But once again, if it has 2 terms by 3 terms, then you need to make a 2 by 3 table. If it had 5 terms times 7 terms, you would have to make a 5 by 7 table, okay? So now we multiply each row by each column. 5x squared times 2x is 10x cubed. 5x squared times 3 is 15x squared. Now we go to the next row. Negative x times 2x is negative 2x squared. Negative x times 3 is negative 3x. Last row, 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times 3 is 12. Now, after doing the multiplication in the box, we need to still combine like terms. So you can put your x squareds together, and you can put your x's together. Final answer, 10x cubed plus 13x squared plus 5x plus 12. Okay, notice you get the same answer either way. So if you like this FOIL method of distributing, cool. If you like the box method because it helps you organize it, cool. Okay, and that's really going to be it. So this type of stuff is what Delta Math is on. The squaring of binomials, unfortunately, Delta didn't have any practice on that, so it's something that you just need to watch, learn, because you will be quizzed on it, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Miss you guys. Hope you're doing well. Bye.